In this video, I'm going to show you the other three types of externalities. I already showed you a positive externality of consumption, so there's three others we need to look at. If you compare this to the previous video, you notice I've just switched where the MSB and MPB curve are. So if the last one was a positive externality of consumption, this is going to be a negative externality of consumption. To do our analysis, we start with where is the market producing? It's producing right here at Q private, where private benefits intersect private costs. The problem with this is, what we can see on the diagram is society wants less than these produced. And we can tell because if we go from Q optimal to Q private, what we can say is this social cost is greater than the social benefit at that same level. And that's true throughout this triangular region. So there we have our little arrow that we like to draw. So this means that it's going to be a negative externality, and it's a negative externality of consumption because we see two benefit curves. This can exist when someone is consuming a product and their consumption of that product takes away from the benefit or the enjoyment of somebody else. An example of a good that might produce the effect that we're seeing here would be someone who buys a really loud stereo for their apartment. When they think about buying a stereo, they're thinking about what is their benefit versus what is their cost. What they're probably not thinking about are their neighbors who, every time they listen to their stereo, are going to enjoy living in their apartment a little bit less. So, because society's benefit is below the private benefit, well, we can say that this is a negative externality of consumption, and the consumption is of an expensive or loud stereo system. In this diagram, now we can tell, because there are two cost curves, we can tell that this is going to be an externality of production, because MSC does not equal MPC. You'll notice on this, I haven't actually written MSB is equal to MPB. You don't actually always have to. It might be a little bit useful in doing your analysis, but it's really not required because what matters to make it right or wrong is that the private costs are greater than the social costs. So that might have been a clue to you already. If the private cost, if what it costs me is greater than what it costs society, that doesn't actually sound like a bad thing for society. It means they're saving some money somehow. Let's go ahead and look for the externality. Again, we want to go for quantity private first. And what we notice is that the optimal quantity is greater than that. So that means this is going to be positive. So this is a positive externality of production. Let's go ahead and show the analysis so that we can be sure of why. We can use our tip again, and we know that we're looking for an arrow that points to the right, so I can see an arrow that points to the right here. And what we can see in this entire region is that, as always, if we look for private social costs and social benefits, here are the social costs, yet the social benefits are higher. So they're saying we want more of this product, but the market is failing to produce it. So this is a positive externality of production. A product would be something like training. When I think about going and getting my master's degree, or if I think about going and learning how to fix cars, whatever amount of training it might be, I'm thinking about the benefit that there is to me. If I go learn how to fix my car, I can save money by not taking it to the mechanic. Or I can become a mechanic myself and charge people to fix their cars. So I'm thinking about my own costs and my own benefit. So that's MPC and MPB. What I'm not thinking about is how that might benefit other people. That is, maybe if I have some training, I teach somebody else how to do it for free. So if I open a garage and I get enough business that I start to need other workers, maybe I hire some people on and I train them myself. Now, those people have that skill, but they didn't have to pay for it. In fact, they maybe got paid to come do it. And then they can pass it along to other people and other people. Education tends to be a common example that we'll use for this. So what we're seeing again is that that extra benefit to those other people is shown because the social curve is below the private curve. Again, you can see that I've just switched the relationship of MSC and MPC, and now we can say that private costs are less than social costs. So for some reason, society is paying a greater cost for my production, my consumption of this good than I am, or their costs, which include my costs, are greater than just my costs. A common example here would be anything that pollutes. Part of the cost of producing any good, whatever it might be, is a certain amount of pollution. Because that pollution goes out into the atmosphere, we don't always think of that pollution being a cost. But if people in surrounding villages or neighborhoods or cities, if people in those places have extra health care costs that they have to pay because of, sicknesses that they incur because of the pollution that is caused, if they have to pay to keep their water cleaner, whatever it might be, those costs are a cost of producing a certain good, but they usually aren't going to be factored into the price of that good. So those are external costs that are placed on society from the private market, an example of market failure. Again, we want to be looking for a negative triangle because quantity private is greater than the optimal quantity, so the market is producing too much. It's a demerit good. So there's no triangle shown, so I probably just need to draw it real quickly. And what we can show is that in this triangle here, throughout there, the social costs are greater than the social benefit. So this is a negative externality. So this is a negative externality of production.